Hello, everybody, and welcome to the United Stand. It's the fan forum again. We're here. I'm back with my favourite people, all Christmassy, ready to do a little Christmas show before Christmas commences this week. We've got some good information to start that we've had over the course of the day that we can get into, talking about summer signings. Who would we want to sign in the summer? Are we going to sign anyone in January? What's going on? We've got Jay in his Santa outfit. We've got Kev, who seems to have gone to Lapland and he's chilling with Elf right now. So we've got a good show coming up for you all. Jordan, how are you tonight?
Yeah, I'm good. Just in honor of my Irish friend Joe, who can't get home, I thought I'd wear a picture of him on my jumper today. My favorite Irish moose. So yeah, feeling very festive and great to be with you guys.
Yeah, Jay, in your Santa outfit again. Hope it's been washed after yesterday, but you know, how are you tonight?
You know how hard it is to get a slim fit Santa jumper in this country. You know when you buy a jumper and you go for large, it's large everywhere, especially around the waist. And I've got like a little tiny waist, so this is the only slim fit jumper I could get.
Go on.
So this is the only slim fit jumper I could get. So I hope people like it.
We love it. We love it. Kev, how are you? How long was the flight to Lapland over there? You got there pretty quick.
Didn't take me that long. Ran all the way here. Me with my man Buddy the Elf in the workshop, just seeing how they make all the toys for the children and that, which was really great and fantastic experience. And just great to be on the United Stand as usual. Somebody just asked me to dab, so I'll do that and we'll roll on, won't we?
Kev will go live from anywhere. Honestly, Kev, your commitment is outstanding. But anyway, getting on to Manchester United, and obviously we've had no games called off yet for the weekend. The Newcastle game still stands. We've had Marcus Rashford coming out saying they've been training hard. I mean, surely you should be training hard all year round. But it looks like we've got quite a few players together now, recovered from COVID, ready to go for the Newcastle game. Jordan, getting straight into the Newcastle game, looking ahead to that. Do you expect to see a fully fit Manchester United now they've had that training in place? And do you see it being a struggle after obviously having COVID? Obviously, Newcastle have been fully fit. Even though they lost against Manchester City, they still seem to put in quite a decent performance, very attacking under Eddie Howe. Do you see Manchester United coming back and kind of showing everyone what they've been working on? Or do you think the fitness struggles could be an issue for us going into the Newcastle game?
Yeah. Do you know what's really weird? I was thinking about this when I seen the next game was Newcastle. The last game I went up to Old Trafford was Ronaldo's debut against Newcastle. It really feels like we haven't played that many games and we're playing Newcastle again. And to be fair, apart from, Ronaldo's brilliance, they gave us a decent game. It wasn't a complete rollover. So I'm expecting it to be competitive. Eddie Howe seems to have gotten playing a bit more. But the one thing I would say is that I don't know if you guys can remember back under your man Ollie's reign, Beth, when we came out of the lockdown, we seemed to be one of the fittest teams and performed and went on a great run. So I'm really hoping that behind closed doors we get that kind of reaction. The players are rested and we come out firing on all cylinders.
Exactly. I agree with you on that. It seems like as well, Ralph Rangnick isn't going to stand for any kind of anyone lacking in the fitness department, in the coaching department, any kind of department in Manchester United. We've called him Wreck-It Ralph a few times on this channel, but Jay, he's really come in. We've got new coaches coming in left, right and centre, new appointments. We've just got another new coach appointed today. People seem to be leaving. Carrick's left, McKenna's left. I know it's for the Ipswich job, but some people going out the door that were there previously, and we're now getting really experienced professionals in. Do you think these appointments are going to help with Manchester United going forward, with the fitness, with the training, with the mentality, with the types of people we've employed? Ralph isn't here to mess about, is he?
No, he's not here to mess about. And look, I want to see a different attitude than what I saw against Norwich. I thought against Norwich that performance was abject. And then young boys free hit because he played predominantly the kids. So yeah, obviously you want to see I suppose a bounce back or whatever football punditry term you want to put in it. But at the end of the day, guys, you're playing Newcastle. Those players are playing for their Premiership lives. They get relegated, those players are going to be dealing with massive pay cuts. So I don't feel that this is going to turn up and roll them over. And as Jordan rightly pointed out, the first game against them back in August, we all got drunk on emotion of Ronaldo's debut, but for the first 45, 50 minutes, they put up to us. You take Ronaldo's goals out of that game, I don't think we were that great. But again, different times, different manager. Regarding new coaching staff, again, I don't expect there's going to be a massive sea change overnight. And I'm going to stick to what I said originally when Ralph was hired, that it's not going to be until mid-late February where he's going to put his imprint on that side. But the new coaches, it's exactly what we all wanted. We all agreed that if he comes in and has to deal with the amateur old boys club that was in situ, well, then he's on a hiding to nothing. But now he's got his own staff behind him. It's going to take a little bit of time. I know Nicky Feedon is still there, but I suppose somebody has to make the coffee. So, guys, onwards and upwards.
Exactly. Do you know what? I think Ralph's there behind the scenes thinking, I mean, I've got rid of Carey, I've got rid of McKenna. Now, how do I get rid of Mike Phelan? And I feel like Mike Phelan is just part of the furniture there. He's never going to leave. But Kev, coming on to kind of Ralph's style and what we've seen that Ralph wants, he wants that pressing type of football. We saw that against Crystal Palace. And then at Newcastle, it seemed like we reverted to going into the press, dropping out of the press, and it seemed to be a very iffy performance. I mean, I think we were all on the fan forum, we were saying maybe that's one that we can write off. Coming into this Newcastle game, how important is it that we've had that break? Arsenal have played, Tottenham has played, they're all creeping up the table, the top four race is on. How important is it that not only for the players' mentality, but for the fans as well, that we see Manchester United come out with a proper style of football and really put this game to bed? Because, I mean, the fans and the players need confidence going into New Year with that top four to chase.
We all want confidence as fans going into this game. Now, from the Norwich perspective, it was disappointing. But if you look back to Crystal Palace, it's new manager bounce. There is logic in that saying, the fact that if a new manager comes in and he's trying to get his ideas over, every player will try and hit the ground running because there's a clean slate, there's this and that. And then at Norwich, for some reason, it kind of dropped off. And it's something we discussed on the last fan forum we were on, but it was almost like, right, well, Rangnick probably realised that he's got a much bigger task on his hands than what he maybe initially thought he had. A lot of us United fans bang on all the time and say, well, the team's sound. You know, we've got Cristiano Ronaldo, we've got all these superstars, Bruno Fernandes, this, that. But, you know, it does come down to team structure and that. Now, and I know I'm hearing a few of you say that Newcastle will be a tricky game and that. And personally, I'm sorry, I don't see it as being a tricky game. I know it was, 4-1 at Old Trafford, and when we played them, and I was at that game, and I know for a fact that game could have easily been 4-4. In the second half, Newcastle were running through our midfield, and that is the main problem. It's something you've mentioned that we will get onto later on, talking about transfers, because that is the one main gap in our team that I think we need to plug. But even now, man-to-man, the fact that Manchester United have had a week off, some will say it's COVID, they've not been training and that, whatever. They'll be in good shape or whatever. Rangnick's had another week or so to get his philosophy onto the side of these players. And I watched, and I'm not comparing Manchester United to Manchester City. Manchester City absolutely annihilated Newcastle last week and didn't even really get out of second gear. Newcastle, fair enough, they're the richest club in the world or whatever. If they want to hold some kind of trophy to that and lift it up and say we're the richest club in the world, fair enough. You're going to be the richest club in the Championship next season, because even Manchester United, Rangnick, I've got total 100% faith that he will go to St. James's Park and set up and get a result. Now, whether the thing is, where we're getting bogged down is now we want to see, it's not all about just winning games. We won against Norwich, and I remember watching that game and thinking, well, we've won it, but you're not disappointed. It's just the performance. What you want is the win and the performance, and that will come with time. And you have to give the man time. You know, that there is already people starting to bang on about, should Rangnick have got the job on that? I'm sorry, I don't subscribe to that theory or whatever. I've heard Tim Sherwood or whatever on Sky Sports and that, and I think pipe down, mate. He's managed for 3 games. You know, I've seen enough against Crystal Palace to suggest that I can see the style of football he wants to play. Let him get the players in that he wants, and then we sort of take it from there. But as a contest against Newcastle, honestly, I am super confident, because even with the group of players we've got, if Rangnick puts them out into a certain system, I honestly do not see any problems. If anyone wants to even let me know a certain player in the Newcastle team that could threaten us, John Joe Shelby.
I don't know. Listen,
I mean, Joe Linton's picked up a bit of form, hasn't he?
St. Maximin running at Harry Maguire is frightening. I'm sorry, but he is.
Yeah, but Rafael Varane could be back.
Yeah, do you know
what? That could be a bonus.
Good shout, to be fair. It'll be interesting to see who is back, actually, because we're not even too sure who's fit to play. I heard Mark on the earlier show saying he knew he had COVID. I'm not sure who's had COVID, so a lot of the fans don't know who's available. But I think it's seriously important we go out. We beat Newcastle and we beat them well. Ralph's got a few more of his coaching staff in. He's had a little bit more time, and Newcastle have actually picked up 0 points against the top 6 so far this season. So, I mean, it does show a lot if we don't manage to win that game. But I'm positive about it. I'm hoping that we will. But for me, it's about getting through these games now in the Christmas period, doing as much as we can to win these games. We've got a good set of fixtures. And then hopefully I think we all know the position that we need to fill in January. It's a gaping hole in our team. Playing Champions League games, hoping to go far in the FA Cup. That's a trophy that we could easily pick up. You need to have depth in each position. We've got a lot of depth in the forward line. We've got some depth in the defence. What we've consistently not had depth in is the midfield. Jordan, for you, how important is it that we do go out and buy a midfielder in January? I think we know Ralph will want one. How important is it that Manchester United back Ralph, considering he's going to be at the club, and go out there and get him a midfielder?
Yeah, I've said it before. I think the decision to go and spend the money this summer on Sancho over not rectifying the main issue of CDM with those 2 beanbags in the midfield ultimately cost Ollie his job. I feel like if he'd went out and spent that money on an out-and-out CDM to really balance that team, along with other decisions that he made, but ultimately I feel like that was the sword he fell on. So he definitely needs to look at that. The one thing Rangnick seems to be really heavy on is the whole video analysis, and what this period has given him is time to look at that footage, send the DVDs over to the players if they still use DVDs, but send the footage over to the players while they're at home and they're isolating, to actually go through frame by frame decisions that he wants them to make in certain situations. So although he hasn't had them on the training field, I think Rangnick will know a lot more about his squad than he would have. So this is probably best case scenario for a manager coming in middle of the season in a league where there is no winter break. He's actually had time to get his feet under the table and actually have a look at what he's got. And we talk about strength in depth in the forward line and defence and whatnot. But depth is only good if there's quality to it. And what he needs to realise for himself is what we've got there, who's right to play the system that he wants us to play. And, you know, if a blind man can see that we need strength in that defensive midfield position. What we keep talking about is, you know, all the obvious names in the Premier League that we're used to seeing week in, week out. I really hope he pulls a gem out of Europe that isn't crazy money, that comes in and is just a proper workhorse, a midfielder that's willing to sacrifice himself for the team in order for the attack to go on and do what they need to do.
Exactly. I mean, we know we've not got that much money in January to spend. And for example, last January, the January before, we signed Bruno Fernandes. We signed Bruno Fernandes in a January transfer window. He was probably one of the best January signings, if not the best January signing that we've made. And he turned the season around. Yes, he was well known. He wasn't extortionate price. He wasn't a Premier League talent like Declan Rice that has been talked about all around the world. People knew about him, yeah. And there is players out there in Europe that are doing well that you can go and scout and you can get for a reasonable price and you can bring in January. People talk about how hard it is to get players out of a club in January. You go for the right person at the right club who's got the talent, who has the talent to become that world-class midfielder. They're on the radar, but they need to go to that next level to become that world-class midfielder. Jay, how important is it that, I mean, we spent 80 million on Maguire. He was a name that everyone was talking about. He was a big price tag. We end up spending 50 million on Wan-Bissaka, a name that everyone's talking about, a big price tag. These players have been good for us, but they've not been amazing for us. How important is it that instead of throwing all this money at big name players, we actually go out, we scout these players, and then we turn them into that player that everyone ends up talking about? We need to prioritise the money, don't we? And surely we can't go on the rest of the season without a midfielder for that position.
Yeah, the signing of Bruno Fernandes in January 2020, we signed him by default because Pogba was injured again, and McTominay was injured legitimately. So we got him by default. The previous August, we had linked to him, and unfortunately, the gears is out of our D's. We didn't get him. So I would argue that the signing of Bruno Fernandes actually kept Ole in a job longer than he should have been there, because Bruno Fernandes, he literally made that club relevant again. He carried that club on his back. And now that rival managers have literally found out Bruno Fernandes' form has dipped a little bit. But that's by the by. To the point that Jordan made, it's a very, very good point. Those players will have been giving umpteen hours clips of their own performances, broken down and analysed to, this is what I did wrong, this is what I did right, and this is what you need to improve upon if you want to play in my side. So I hope Scott McSideways made notes on his performances, because he's been abject at best. Yes, Kevin, I see you shaking your head, mate. So who did we sign in January? Who would I like to sign? I would go right now to Brighton and bite their hand off, throw 30 million on the table. Listen, lads, we're taking Basuma off you. Thanks very much. Have a nice life. I would take Basuma in January. Premiership proven. He'll come in and he will do a job for us for between now and May. The end of the summer, I would sell one of McTominay or Fred. I'd bring Jimmy Garner back from his loan, and I'd buy Frank Kessie. So Frank Kessie, my box-to-box, and Basuma as my CDM would be my dream midfield. And Garner to take over from where Scott has failed. Since Scott out to Ipswich and McKenna if he wants. That's what I would do.
Who says no? Who says no to that? Jay, we need to get you on the Manchester United board. I'm sure they'd listen to you. I'm sure they'd listen to you. That's all I'm going to say. I'm sure they would listen to you. Gav, we've heard about Jay's options for the midfield. And obviously we know a lot of people aren't a fan of McFred. We've consistently criticised them on this channel, but some would say deservingly. I would say deservingly. Do you think they, in this Rangnick team, from what you've seen so far, one, do they have a future under Rangnick? Do you think he can develop them to play well in that position? And two, if we did sign a midfielder, for example, a Basuma, people have been talking about Kamara, and I'll come on to him in a minute. Would they even be able to dislodge McFred, considering they've been in that team for so long and no one seems to be able to dislodge them? How important is it for you, and who would you be going for?
Do you know what? It's such a tough call, and Jay's made some great comments there. I do like Kessie, Basuma as well. And again, at the risk of repeating myself, something we spoke about the other night is the fact of we've looked at the big names at Manchester United and we've gone down this route so many times and it's not worked. So for me now, I feel under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I mean, he was highly backed last summer to be in the position to bring in Cristiano Ronaldo, Jadon Sancho and Varane. It was unbelievable. 3 fantastic signings. But as Jordan touches on again, and it's something that I've said again, I'm delighted that Jadon Sancho come to Manchester United, but I can't help but feel that if money was some kind of issue and the transfer budget, that 70-odd million could have been spent a lot better on filling that gap in the middle of the field. Now, with regards to the players we've got at the minute, Rangnick will definitely get a raise out of them. And it's the reason I said about a change of manager, the fact that getting a new manager in, a better manager will get a hell of a lot more out of these players, but it is going to take time. And that's the thing we have to look at. Now, McTominay, don't get me wrong, I know Jay's trying to fish there and throw out the bait and that. I'm not taking it, but I will say I do like him as a player, but at the minute, I will put that to one side and say, as a squad player, I'm down for it, man. If we're at a certain part of the game, we need to bring McTominay on. That's fine. He can do a job. But as a starter, I wouldn't have him in there. Fred has played himself into this team for me at the minute. I've slagged him off big time, but under Rangnick, I did look at him and think, do you know what? There might be something to deal with there, and he might be able to get the best out of him. But then you look at it, and I'm always like, Declan Rice would be, the main man to throw in there. But I'm now looking at it and thinking, we have been down this route, haven't we? How many times?
Harry Maguire was the main centre back everyone wanted, and then
exactly big.
Yeah, but
Beth, I never wanted Harry Maguire. Never wanted Harry Maguire ever.
With Harry Maguire, England owes 40 million because they've had the best of him. They should go arse with us.
I love it. Fantastic.
To say that there are players out there, and I used this on the last show that I was on, and I said a great example is Leicester City. Their scouting network and the way that I always say about Kante, and everyone says it's an easy one to say, but their scouting network and the way that they continue to sign players, sell them on, but keep this kind of roller coaster going on of signing great players is testament to an absolute great club and how it's run. And that is how Manchester United's fallen back. Because as Jay will well know, when we spoke the other night, we were talking about, we used to sign these players that nobody had heard of and made them into superstars, made them into players. And then, because since Sir Alex Ferguson went, we've kind of sort of panicked and gone back.
We had no one in the football club that actually knew about football.
True.
Exactly. And we were mentioning about players like Falcao, which was a massive gamble, Di Maria, Alexis Sanchez on 400 odd grand a week. I know Ibrahimovic come in, did a bit of a job. But even you can go back to Sebastian Veron and that, if you want to go that far back. And we were asking the question, well, how many of these big name, multi-million pound signings actually worked off? And when you go back through it, there is so many that hasn't worked out. Now, thinking outside the box, I said, if we get a style of play now, which personally, I liked Solskjaer as a club legend and that, but I need to remove the sentiment. He didn't have a style of play, and we waited 3 years to see anything. We give him that much time. Rangnick now is in charge. Whatever, in a couple of months, once we see the style of play coming in, he will identify players to come in and play in that system. And prepare yourself, because it might not be the one that sells the shirts, the one that gets the multimedia clicks and all that, the one that gets the social media clicks on Manchester United's things. It might be somebody we've not heard of. We might sign someone for 10 million. But I know what it's like, because the kids today, they're all, who's he? Do you know what I mean? Oh, he's got the number, 78 shirt. They're not interested in that. But all I'm interested in is getting the players into that Manchester United team that click as a system. But how many years have we had this? We're Rashford, Greenwood, Martial, Cavani, whatever. And they're trying to fit them all in, and it doesn't work. We need a system. That's what we need.
Kevin, that's a great point. Remember when we signed Javier Hernandez, Chicharito?
I loved him.
None of us, with all our football knowledge, had heard of Javier Hernandez. Yeah. And what a baller he was. I mean, he was, I suppose, he was like a Mexican version of Ole Gunnar Solskjaer. He'd come off the bench, 20 minutes, he'd get one sniff of chance, boom, back in the net. Never let us down. And then Van Gaal, in his infinite wisdom, remember, he got rid of Van Persie, Javier Hernandez, and we were left with Wayne Rooney as our own striker, an aging Wayne Rooney. And I love Wayne Rooney, but he got rid of Hernandez. Hernandez went to Madrid and ripped it up in the Liga, and then went off to LA Galaxy. West Ham, you went to West Ham, LA Galaxy. But to your point, Kevin, like, I don't want to see any more when we sign these TikTok divas or Instagram fly-by-nights, because that's what we're just signing, to sell shirts in Asia and emerging markets, to get likes and shares up on social media. They're the kind of players we've been signing. We haven't signed football players. We've signed social media divas, and that's the term I'm going to put in them. I'm not going to call them out. If you want, I will name names, but that's what we signed. because that's the way the club was ran, as a marketing empire, not as a football club. So Ralph, he won't stand for that. He wants football. He wants footballers, not divas.
I think the position of CDM, though, the type of player that plays that role, they're not the showboats. They're not the people that get the assists and the goals and whatnot. They're the people that sacrifice themselves and do the dirty work. So we don't need to go out there and buy a world-class name that's going to shift loads of shirts out in Australia or America. We need to sign the right person for that role.
Who would you sign?
Basuma,
you've got 35 minutes.
Okay. For a while, haven't you, Jordan?
Okay.
Yeah. Massive. I remember me and Beth, over the summer, they were talking about Sancho, and I said I would sign Basuma over Sancho. And people in the comments lost their mind. They were like, this guy is mad. Send him back to Wales. He's shagging sheep. Send him back. He's lost it. but listen, my point was what do we actually really need? And we still need the same thing. I would go out, exactly as Jay said. I would drive to Brighton, knock their door, 30 sacks of sand, and say, give me Basuma, fix our problems.
I rate Basuma. Yeah. I really do. The reason why I was slightly unsure is because Brighton are a very defensive team in the Premier League. They play good football. They're very well drilled. And when I was thinking, if we got Basuma in under Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, I feel like he'd get very lost in the midfield. I feel like they'd leave him on his own a lot of the time. And I feel like it'd be a very different system to what he played in at Brighton. Now we've got Rangnick in, who actually knows how to structure a team, knows how to make things work, knows how to give people pairs so they don't get left on their own, and knows how to set up a football team to go and win a game, and has a style of play, has a formation, has a system that he wants to stick to. I feel like a player like that could definitely come in, be coached to how we should play, and be coached to be a very, very good player for Manchester United team. I do think Basuma could step up to our level, but there's a lot of players out there, and this is the thing, like we talked about Leicester before. I mean, Tielemans, Mahrez, other players, Fofana, Kante, all these players, who knew about them before they went to Leicester, and they turned into such good players there. And we've done it before. I mean, Ronaldo, no one was really going massive about him. He comes to Manchester United, becomes the best player in the world. It's like when Sir Alex Ferguson left, the board, because they didn't know about football, were just going on a computer searching, who does everyone want in this position? Will they make me money? Yes. They weren't actually looking at stats. They weren't using the scouting networks. And the thing is with Ralph, which is so exciting, is everyone's seeing his background in transfers and in scouting players, and what he buys them for, considering to what he sells them on for, and the way he built Leipzig from the ground up. And they've had such a good players come out of their team, and it's really exciting. And I think Jay, moving on to you, thinking about
actually, Beth, is the comment there from Julian Lee. Jesse Lingard earns more than Sadio Mane. That's how much people running our club know about football. That is the comment of the night so far.
Is that seriously true?
Oh my
God! If that's true, that's the comment of the night right there.
Well, if that is true, which I would probably think it is, Liverpool are very structured with the wage contracts. I'm not even give Salah out the contract that he wants yet, and he's the best player in the world at the moment. So you're looking at that. Jesse Lingard, no wonder he wants to run down his contract and go and get a new one. No, the thing is, this is the thing. For a long time, Ralph's coming now, and this is why we've called him Racket Ralph. For a long time in that football club, the players have been running the show, and they've not known behind the scenes. The big directors, the people that make all the big decisions, they've got so worried in situations. They've been so bad at dealing with contracts. They've ended up giving these massive wages so players won't leave, so they're not embarrassed. And then people have big wages, so when people come into the football club, they're like, well, that person's on this amount. And it's just an endless, vicious circle.
Well, that is the reason, right, that I never really solely blamed Solskjaer. You got these people that went in and went, oh, they're going to Solskjaer, the buck stops with him. Fair enough, right? He was given his dream job. Who was he given the dream job by? The Glazers and Ed Woodward put him and us as Manchester United fans in this position where we had to support this manager, and we were always going to support him. But at the end of the day, a better manager and a proper coach will get more out of any player. Even if I played for Manchester United, and I was good back in the day, but I'm not now. I've lost it a bit because I like to drink. But even Rangnick now would still make me, he would get that, bit more out of me as a player. And he will get more out of any player there. And I said it the other night, Robertson, you look at a manager like Klopp or Guardiola, they can cherry pick players. Now, I know that they spent a lot of money, and people say Guardiola spent 100 million on Grealish, he's done this, he's brought in this, that, but he still brings these players in, develops them, and actually makes them better players. Cancelo, you look at Robertson, Jota, why wasn't anybody else in for Jota at Wolves at the time? Everybody knew he was a half-decent player, but yet Klopp just looked at him and went, right, he's perfect for Liverpool and our style of play. And that's why I keep banging on at this point of when we're at the point where we've got a style of play, that's when the manager can start identifying players and going, right, I'll bring him in. It might even be Wan-Bissaka, for Christ's sake. He might be looking at him and going, he's not ripping up trees. I'm going to sign a right back. We were after Trippier in the summer, weren't we?
You've hit the nail on the head, Kev. It's not just about making players better players. It's actually giving them a direction and a system to play in that they actually understand what their jobs are. Very much under the previous management, you didn't know what we were getting from one game to the next, and neither did they. So then when players are coming in from the youth or coming off the bench, it's kind of like, well, what system are we playing here? You look at our Liverpool team, and I hate it. I hate what they've become because they are so good. But a player is injured, another player goes in, and they know exactly what they need to do. And you're talking about the Jota thing. I totally agree with you. But there's Neves at Wolves just sat there. There's Rafinha at Leeds just sat there. There's players that would come into that Man United team and are better than what we got and would help take us to another level. They're playing at teams that are below us. And our board should be looking at those type of players to bring in. Yeah.
But, sorry, I would say one thing on that, Jordan. Under the previous regime, and let's say Ole Gunnar Solskjaer, it would have been quite easy for him to identify Rafinha and go, scoring a few goals, ripping it up at Leeds, same with Neves, brings him in. But you bring him in, and all you're doing is stockpiling players, attacking talent. And we have an embarrassment of riches up there. The difference is it's knowing how to use them. And that is something that we have had. We've got no system, no blend of anything. And that's the thing. The thing that pains me, it's almost like we've had 3 years kind of wasted now when you look back. I don't feel like we've moved on. People will look and go, oh, we finished second or whatever, to Man City. We're about 158 points behind them, man. We were nowhere, it wasn't a title challenge. Yeah, we finished second, but you get nothing for second, as Roy Keane would say. It's a nonsense. You know what I mean?
There's a reason why people often say when players sign for other teams, for example, City and Liverpool, they turn into great players. When they sign for us, they go off the radar. A lot of it has been down to the terrible coaching over the past few years and how they've been given no direction. And a lot of it is to do with the scouting network. There's been a lot of bad decisions at Manchester United. There's been a lot of bad contracts being given out. I mean, Martial's on 250 grand a week, for God's sake. It's crazy. It's craziness. It's madness. But hopefully now Rangnick's come in, this is going to change. We've heard him say he likes to bring players in on the first or second contract. He wants a hungriness. If players don't want to play, out you go. And if they don't want to listen to him, he'll call you out. And that's the kind of stuff we need. There's been so much kind of mollycoddling over the past few years. It needs to be tough love. And it just looks like everyone was very comfortable. And now Ralph's come in. It's going to be a different story. And I think Manchester United, they need to back Rangnick in the window. They need to do it. And we need a midfielder if we want to get far in these competitions. We cannot do it with McFred. And it's just simple as that. Because even they're going to need a break. They're not good anyway, but they're going to need a break. So that needs to happen. We saw Romano on Twitter today saying that Manchester United are focusing on the summer transfer window other than January's transfer window. Personally, for me, I do think we will sign someone in January. I think they have to. I think they've got to back Rangnick and they've got to give him slightly, it's not anything major, but he's going to pick out a player that they can get for a low price in January. They've got to trust him and they've got to go with that, especially considering he's going to be going into that role. It's not as if they're just backing someone who's at the club for a few months. He's going to be still at Manchester United. Even when he leaves, he's probably going to help bring in the next manager. You've got to back him. But looking towards the summer, Jordan, you look towards the summer and you see that Martial's going to be gone, Pogba's probably going to be gone, Jesse Lingard's going to be gone. There's a lot. Dean Henderson's going to be gone. There's a lot of players that are going to be leaving Manchester United. thankfully, because there's been a lot of deadwood there for a long time now. Matt is going to go, Matic is going to go. So a lot of players that are going to be leaving Manchester United. When you look at that squad and you look at the players that we know are leaving and the positions that are going to be left a little bit bare, is there any positions, any people that massively stand out for you on what United need to go and do in summer? It's going to be a busy transfer window for us.
Yeah, I think it will be a busy window, but you're definitely right. We've got to get some of this deadwood out. The thing with Ralph is that, you know, there's no emotional attachment to any of these players, you know, them coming from the youth or whatnot. He will look at them, and if you're good enough and you can play the system, then you have a future. If not, we're going to move you on. So we've never really had a window since Sir Alex left, really. I think, well, Van Gaal did it, but did it in the wrong way, where he moved players on. And I said last night, one of the points I made was Sir Alex was very good at identifying when it was time to say goodbye to certain players. And as much as it hurt him to, you know, certain players that were his own, he still sat them down in the summer and said, look, it's time to go. You're not going to get the minutes. And I said that was in Sir Alex's book. I remember reading that. But in Roy Keane's book, he always said, even if they won the league, there was always that excitement of who's going to come. Sorry, my dog's losing his marbles. Knock it off, Ari. Sorry. Yeah. It was always that excitement of who's going to come through the door. It always made you raise your game, thinking, right, I need to impress these new guys, or this new guy's coming in to try and take my place. I'm not having it. And that's what we need. For me, this summer, if we bring 2 of the right players in, but 4 or 5 leave, I'm happy with it. Because that means Rangnick's identified that the players within the squad he feels can play the system. He's got some of the deadwood out players that are not committed, and he's brought in 2 more bodies that can actually play the system that he wants us to play.
Exactly. And Jay, looking at the kind of positions that we're going to be losing, Martial's definitely going. He's off to Sevilla. He's off to Spain. He's going to try and get himself back into the French national team. He's done. He can't be doing with Rangnick's high pressing. He doesn't want it. He's decided he's off. And Cavani is going to be leaving. There's rumours in January, but I probably think in the summer he's going to be leaving. That leaves Ronaldo, who's not got long left with us. He'll still be there for another year, maybe 2. And you also have Greenwood, who's coming through. Rashford, who's not really a striker. Do you think that United do need to move for a centre forward in the summer? Do you think it's time that we move on and get someone else in to help Ronaldo up front and possibly continue that role with Greenwood?
Beth, I got you covered here. A Colombian chap, Atalanta player called Duvan Zapata. Remember him? Mm-hmm.
We've heard you
remember how he absolutely bodied Maguire. He made Maguire look like a little schoolboy. Some stats here, guys. Big thing, though. Yeah, to be fair. Some little stats here. This season thus far, 16 games, 9 goals, 4 assists. Champions League, 6 games, 3 goals. He's 30 years old. He's a battering ram. I think he is made for the Premiership. Big engine, and I think he would be a perfect foil to Ronaldo in his final season. Some more stats in here, guys. I get my phone out here because I'm not going to remember these. 2019 season, 23 goals. 2020 season, 18 goals. 2021, 15, and this season so far, 9 goals. So a tried and proven goal scorer. Big engine, physically suited to the Premiership, coming from Atalanta, not considered to be a world star. I think he would suit Rangnick's system perfectly. And as I said, perfect foil to play beside Ronaldo in his last season. Zapata wouldn't play every game because obviously you like Greenwood to come in for cameos and play up top beside Ronaldo, because apparently Greenwood is the heir apparent, but he is physically not quite there yet. He's great coming in off the wings, but physically up top, he's not quite there. Probably needs another season or 2 to add on some muscle mass, a deal with Premiership centre backs. So Zapata's my man, guys. That's what I'm hanging it on. I don't want us to get back into bed with Raiola. Raiola and Pogba can piss off and stay the hell out of Manchester for the rest of their days, as far as I'm concerned. So I don't want to get back in Raiola. Therefore, I am saying Zapata right now.
I hope Raiola takes a trip to Ireland one day. I think that'd be. I think that'd be very interesting. To be fair,
He's not man enough. He's not man enough. Trust me.
Kev, Jay just touched on Haaland. Then Haaland's on everyone's lips. He's been on everyone's lips for quite a while now. Raiola won't shut up about all of his options. He won't shut up about the wage that he wants. He also won't shut up about the fact that he's going to be going to a lot of different clubs over the course of his career. With all these factors in mind, you've got to take into consideration you're back into bed with Raiola, like Jay said very, very nicely. You're back into bed with Raiola. He's also going to top the wage bill. You're going to have to give Raiola a chunk of money just for a sign-on clause. And also, he is going to move Haaland on within 2 or 3 years. It's going to happen. And when Haaland comes in, every single international break, there's going to be rumours about him moving different clubs. It's going to be the Pogba story all over again. But then again, you do get Erling Haaland. Do you think it is worth it? And do you think Manchester United are going to be okay with making that move, giving that money away and going back into business with Raiola?
Do you know I'm going to sound... That's why I was like that then. I was like, I'm going to sound ridiculous now after saying let's sign, players that are not a lot of money and all that. But what I'm going to say is, for Erling Haaland, for 68, 70 million or whatever, I don't see that as big money. Now, I have been the biggest whatever against Raiola that you will ever see. And Jay will know that off my YouTube channel, that I cannot stand Raiola. But I don't know. If the opportunity's there, right, that Erling Haaland wanted to come to Manchester United, it's a tough one. It really, really is a tough one, because I haven't seen anything like Erling Haaland. At that age, the goals that he scored, he's, what would you say, a generational talent or whatever. And he reminds me so much of one of my favourite Manchester United players. It was Ruud van Nistelrooy. He literally just puts the ball in the back of the net. So I am really, really caught between a rock and a hard place in calling that one. I totally get what Jay's saying. Don't want to get back into bed with Raiola, but I don't know. Did you have a one-night stand with Raiola to bring Haaland back?
Kev's going to invite Raiola
Kevin,
back.
Not with yours, mate. Not with yours.
Oh, God.
I'd be happy to top and tail with Raiola for Haaland.
Jordan, back me up. Back me up, mate.
Listen, I would top and tail. I'm telling you.
Reason?
Just top and tail. I'd let him have top bunk. I agree. I feel like he is in that bracket of exceptional ballers that are in their prime. As one of the biggest clubs in the world, you have to be in for him. So for me, I don't want to do business with Raiola, but for that situation, I would. I also feel like what we were saying about agency fees going down, that's even more of an incentive for Raiola to move him on, quicker. So we might only get sort of 2-3 years out of him, but I'd rather get those 2-3 years out of him at Man United than have to sit and watch him run riot at another Premier League club, because at some point he is going to come to the Premier League. So, yeah, we should be in for him.
But the thing is, if Manchester United do sign him and go in for him, the last time we were after him before he went to Dortmund, United were in for him. It's well publicised. Now, the fact that Manchester United didn't agree to it was because of the Raiola clause, and that Raiola wanted this same thing, that was he can leave within 2 years to go to any other Champions League team for 60, 70 million and that. And United wouldn't bow down to that. So in a way, as much as we slag Manchester United off, I totally agree with Manchester United's decision at that time, although it was gutted. But when you read them sort of newspaper articles, you go, well, I can understand, because why would you want to sign somebody like that you're going to get 1 or 2 years out of? What I will say is, if they do decide to get back into bed with Raiola and do whatever, the main thing for me is it's on Manchester United's terms. And there is no get out... Listen, if it's Cristiano Ronaldo had a similar thing at Manchester United. When he re-signed his contract, was one of the greatest days of my life as a United fan. I couldn't believe that he signed an extended, whatever, 4 or 5 year contract. but they mean nothing anymore because behind closed doors, you don't know what's in there. And one of the clauses was that if he wanted to go to Real Madrid, he could go. And that was Sir Alex Ferguson's wish to him. Now, with Erling Haaland, if there's a similar thing written in, then fair enough. If he says to Man United, I've always wanted to play for Real Madrid, but I'll give you 3 or 4 years. Listen, I'd be happy for 3 or 4 years because it would be a roller coaster and Man United would be far, far more competitive as a football team with him in their ranks.
You would also get the money back for him as well. You would get that money back. And plus...
as football fans, it's hard to separate yourself from that, because that's the kind of thing that Ed Woodward and that would go, well, this is great. We can sign a player for 70 million, but in 3 years' time, we might be able to sell him for 250 million. We don't really celebrate that kind of thing, do we? We just go, well, but if anything, we would want to keep him, wouldn't we?
Also, guys, I think it's about Haaland, Free and Sancho. That relationship was telepathic. Yeah, and I personally would love to see that at Old Trafford. Like those two on the break out in the German league was phenomenal. And I feel like the benefit of those two playing together, and if, as Rangnick started with 2 up top, it's not going to stifle Greenwood's development. You're still going to get to see that as well. Ronaldo, is he really going to sign another contract after the year he's got left after this season? So yeah, I'm top and tailing. I'm in.
Well, imagine Jude Bellingham coming for that Dortmund link up as well. Him replacing Pogba. I don't think that'll happen, but that'd just be crazy. And with the Haaland thing as well, just a quick thing I wanted to add in is we know the connections with Man City. Personally, for me, I do see him possibly going there. The only thing that I think might stop him is I don't think City might not pay the wages. They do have quite a strict wage structure. But if he goes to City, we know how good they are this year. Probably going to go and win the league. If they get Haaland, it's game over again next season. That's the frightening thing. It is frightening.
Well, they haven't even got a striker now. They literally play with whatever the false number 9, and they're tearing it up now. No other team can get near them. Imagine putting, and this is the reason I always say to even my mates that are City fans or whatever, I say, imagine if you'd have got Ronaldo. I've said it to United fans before, and they don't like to answer it, but I go, how many goals do you reckon Ronaldo would have scored in that City team this year? And they're like, but how many has he scored for us? Put Ronaldo at the top of that City team as the top of the pyramid. How many goals would he have scored for City this season?
I think he'll go Chelsea, guys. He looks like Lukaku's got his Timberland boots on again. They just write players off. Yeah, I could see him going there.
Well, I had an argument with Ricky on this show about Lukaku when he first signed, and I said Lukaku won't come to the Premier League and do what he's done in Serie A. He'll be the same Lukaku that we let go. He's not as good as the striker that everyone thinks. He's a certain type of striker. He's not a good striker. I got told, no, he'll be the best striker in the Premier League this season, Beth. Well, look what's happened now. So I think we can all agree that he might turn his season around. But this is my problem. I don't want us to go and make the same mistakes we've done before. And Lukaku is one of them people. You can go to a different league, you can do it there, but coming back to the Premier League, sometimes lepers don't change the spots. That's all I'm going to say. But yeah, moving on from the striker situation, Dean Henderson, he's looking for a move out of Manchester United. He's not Rangnick's first choice as number 1. Rangnick came in, he set the record straight. He said, David De Gea is my number 1 keeper. Jordan, I'll come to you on this. If Dean Henderson does go, do you think it's important we keep him on a loan deal? Or do you think a permanent deal, get the money for him, be gone? Or do you think there is possibly still a chance for him at Manchester United for a loan?
No, I've said before, like from day dot, De Gea's my guy. I'm happy with De Gea. He's going into the prime of his career. There's talk of him signing a new contract. I would have sold, and this is again a failure of a club, selling the players when they're at their most valuable. Like, you've got to make emotionless decisions, sell them and move them on. If we're that concerned, put a buyback clause in it, and let him go and play football. There's no point having 2 potential number 1 goalkeepers battling it out. It doesn't set the right tone. It causes unrest. You can imagine the anxiety going through your head when you're going up for a cross, knowing if I drop this, I might play the next game. You can't have that. You need a number 2 that's willing to be a number 2 and knows that that's what his role is, and willing to support the number 1 to be the best number 1 they can, not a number 1 who's a number 2 trying to get the number 1 out. It isn't right.
Interesting question. Is Tom Heaton good enough to be the number 2?
I think he is. I can't see why not. Like, De Gea doesn't seem to be massively injury prone, so it's not like we've had prolonged periods where he's been out. But that is a situation that can be rectified once you've got 40 million for Henderson. You can then look to bring someone in for 7-8 million that is a number 2 and can sit on the bench. But as it stands, I think I wouldn't. It's not an area that I would go out and sign. We're very limited on the amount of deals our board can do. Bringing another number 2 in at the moment is not something I feel we need to do.
It's not a priority, is it? And do you know what? I think the worst thing we ever did is push Romero out the way he did. He was honestly the world's best number 2, and he wasn't complaining about being number 2 either. And that's another thing that went wrong at the club, and it was completely mishandled. Jay, in the future with Rangnick here, do you think we are going to see a lot more professionalism when it comes to being up front with players? What players are first team players? What players are squad players? Who needs to improve? Who doesn't need to improve? Who's going to be leaving in the summer? Who's his number 1? What standards he's going to set? Are we going to see him being a lot more straightforward? He's got his press conference tomorrow. He's been straightforward so far. Is it going to be refreshing for us to kind of know what's going on instead of always just telling us what we want to hear it realistically?
Yeah, if you compare an Ollie press conference with a Raf press conference, they're poles apart. It's like comparing a speech by Winston Churchill with Mr. Bean. There's no comparison, guys, whatsoever. So just that situation last season with the goalkeepers, that was created in part by Solskjaer because he clearly told Henderson, sign a contract, Dean, £140,000 per week, and you get game time, which straight away gets your number 1 goalkeeper's nose out of joint. The situation arose then where he was playing Henderson when David went up to Spain to see his child being born, then drops De Gea. So that situation was sparks of a manager that's indecisive, that cannot make a decision and stick to it. This manager is the opposite. This manager already probably has made a short list of the players that he already doesn't rate. Yeah. And he probably came into the club knowing there's certain players going to this club that I have to watch closely because I know they're up for the fight. He's now seen him in a couple of games. He's watched them in training. So I think his opinion has been solidified. And in some cases, maybe even changed, aka Fred. So this manager will make cold-hearted, ruthless decisions devoid of any empathy or loyalty to anybody. Ralph is loyal to one person. That's himself and his convictions. Whereas I get the impression Solskjaer, he was trying to be everybody's friend, not get anybody's nose out of joint, and not offend anybody. Now, that may have worked initially when he took over as the manager, and we got that 10-game bounce that, the atmosphere changed, the training ground. Everybody suddenly had a smile on their face. Big Bad Josie was gone. No more bollockins. No more getting told you're shit when you are shit. But that gets you so far. And ultimately, guys, it got us nowhere. 460 minutes spent in the transfer market. No trophies. So why would you show for it? We now have to go on another rebuild this summer due to lack of strategic decision-making on behalf of our previous manager. He was backed, and now we have another manager that has to be backed and do another clear-out. It seems every time you get a manager in, there's got to be a clear-out, and now we got to do another one. And finally, I trust this manager has the balls to do it, because the last manager clearly hadn't. Like Matt getting another contract, Matic signing a contract, Dean Henderson getting that contract, and Beth, you're correct. We had the perfect number 2 in Sergio Romero. When he played for us, none of us thought, oh shit, Sergio's playing today, we're going to concede. No, Romero never, to my knowledge, now someone in the chat will know, I don't think Romero ever had a clanger. You think, oh Jesus, I hope he doesn't play again. I like Romero. And the treatment of that man by the club was downright disgusting. The way he was treated, it was abysmal treatment. Oh, it was shocking treatment. It really was. So, to your point, Jordan, when Henderson came back from loan from Sheffield United, he was decent at Sheffield. But maybe that's his level. He was worth 30, 35 million then. That was the time. Press the button and sell the player.
This is for the
same as Jesse. Yeah. But that comes down to sorry, Beth.
Work out. It's the thing is, the people at Manchester United who are giving the contracts and who are scouting these players and who are watching them on the loans, it's their decision to work out from watching them. Are they good enough to come back and earn a first team spot, or do we give them away? Don't give them away. Sell them, get the money while we can, instead of bringing them back, putting them on a massive contract, have them sitting on a bench and not being able to get rid of them. And this has been the same cycle over and over again.
Or worse, guys, we're sending them out, like Lingard's situation. We send them out on loan, then another year into their contract, they then refuse to sign a new contract and they walk away for free.
It's laughable.
It's madness. We've got to make better decisions on these players and sell them when their value is actually there and we could get something for them.
Yeah, and on this fresh start, with the fact that Rangnick's kind of getting all the old stuff out, bringing all the new stuff in, there's not going to be that bias there anymore. There's not going to be that favouritism. Everyone's going to be looking at this with a fresh pair of eyes, a clean slate. On that, Kev, with there being no favourites, we've seen Rangnick start the same 11 for both Premier League games. Norwich wasn't a great game. Varane, like we're saying, if Varane's back, Lindelof's been having great performances. You're looking at that Newcastle game. What centre-back partnership would you actually go for? You've got Varane, Maguire, Bailly, and Lindelof to pick from. Who are you picking as your centre-back pairing?
Me personally would be Eric Bailly and Lindelof. And I know I don't understand this thing at Manchester United at the minute. It's almost like people are calling down from the top and saying, Harry Maguire, you know what I mean? He's got a massive head. He's 80 million. You need to play him. And it's like, well, you don't really, do you? What I want to get away from the culture is picking these players because of what they cost or whatever. I'd rather you just look at them, forget the value of them, and just pick them purely on performances. Now, we don't see what happens in training or whatever. I'd like to think that this manager now will go in and look at it and go, right, he's had a brilliant week training and on merit, he's in. You know, and I know a lot of us will speculate once the minute the team sheet drops and we're like, bloody hell, do you know what I mean? He's in there. What's he doing in there and that? But we don't see what happens behind closed doors in a training session. And that's how it will work. But I think the one main thing of mine has been favoritism. I'm holding back. It has been favoritism.
Don't get too angry in front of the elves.
Sorry, buddy. You've got a whole. It has been favoritism at Manchester United. I think that's been one of the worst things over the last 3 years. The likes of Harry Maguire, the fact that Scott McTominay and Fred have just walked into that team. There's been a hell of a lot of players that have just walked into that team. And on the goalkeeper debate, there is no doubt for me. I know David Hayer's on a lot of money at Manchester United, reportedly 375 grand a week or whatever. Great money if he can get it. But for me, he is worth it. And I'm just going to say, I think Bruno Fernandes was Manchester United's player of the year for 2021. Personally, I would have gone more for consistency, and I would say that David De Gea would have been mine again. And again, I'm going to say that shows how far Manchester United have slipped behind. For me, if you're a top team in world football, in the Premier League, your goalkeeper shouldn't be your main man. He shouldn't be your player of the year. He shouldn't be anywhere near that award, because you should have a defence and a team in front of that protects that keeper. That keeper shouldn't even be making one save a game, maybe. And that's the sign of a good team for me. The fact that David De Gea has been so exposed. Sir Alex Ferguson retired in, 2013? And 3 years after that, David De Gea was Manchester United's player of the year 3 years on the run. And for me, it just tells a story of how Manchester United have fallen. I've always said that. People are like, oh, well, yeah, he's a great keeper. And I'm like, he shouldn't be exposed to making these saves.
And you can say it's defending from the front, but at the same time, I still don't think we know our best centre-back pairing completely. And quickly, I mean, the hour's gone by so quick, but before we do wrap it up, I want to get Jordan and Jay's opinion on this. What centre-back pairing would you go for? Because I find it very interesting, because even I'm unsure.
For me, it's Eric Bailly and Varane. If Varane's fit, I think Varane can give Bailly a calmness to his erraticness sometimes, and talk to him. And I think Bailly is our best defender when fit. So for me, that would be the combination. Just quickly, I know we haven't got a lot of time, but he played the same 11 because if you heard what he said, that it was the first time he had a full week to work with that team. So wanted to see if they would be able to implement his ideas going forward. I would be very surprised if it is the same 11 for Newcastle. Now he's had a chance to actually get into him and give him the footage. If he comes with the same 11, I'll be very, very surprised. But yeah, Bailly and Varane.
I massively agree. And guys in the comments as well, name your centre-back pairing, because I'm generally very, very intrigued into what people are saying. Jay?
Look, I'm not going to disagree with anything Jordan said there. Varane is a leader, World Cup winner. Harry Maguire, relegated 4 times, not a leader. He's a leader in failure. So I could not see Harry Maguire leading Ants to a picnic, let alone leading the back 4. So Harry Maguire beside Eric Bailly is going to be erratic. He's going to launch in head first because he has to cover up for mistakes that Maguire is making. So the obvious pairing has got to be Varane and Mr. Eric Bailly. I hope we'll see it.
And that's why I always like wrapping up the show with Jay, because he leaves you on a very good note and he leaves you contemplating life.
He couldn't leave Ants to a picnic. I'm done. I'm out. I'm signing out of 2021. I'm done.
Oh, it nearly beats a Plenty of Fish one at the end of last show. Anyway, guys, of the show. It's been a great show. Jay will give us a great outro on the next one, I am sure. Tomorrow we've got another fan forum. We'll be talking about a Newcastle game. We'll probably give our score predictions. And obviously Christmas is coming up. So Merry Christmas to everyone. I hope you have a great week. But Jordan, thanks for coming on the show tonight.
Absolute pleasure, Beth. Always good to see you.
Exactly. I've not seen you in a while. It's good to catch up. And you've actually not tried to drag me that much today. So I'm very happy about that.
You've ignored my messages about your FPL form, Beth.
Well, yeah, because
actually, Beth, how's that going? Beth, how is that going for you at the moment? Tell everybody.
The stream's ended now. Jay, let's ignore. Thank you for being on the show. Not thank you for calling me out on FPL, because not all of us.
Would I?
All of it. But thanks for being on.
Okay, guys.
Hope you have a safe trip back from Buddy the Elves. Whatever's going on there. Hope you have a safe trip back for Christmas. And yeah, thank you for being on the show.
We've still got a couple of days till Christmas yet. Do you know what I mean? Me and Buddy were just discussing a few things here, but we'll get it all sorted, and obviously all the kids will get the Christmas presents at Christmas. So that's the main thing, isn't it? And obviously, hopefully, United win against Newcastle.
Do you know what the funniest thing is? The way you sat, you actually look like one of the little elves compared to Buddy. He looks like the big one. But anyway, guys, thank you so much for joining us today. We'll see you on the next show, and Merry Christmas to everyone.